chopping down the cherry tree. The story about chopping down a cherry tree has been a long-held urban legend. Urban legends are generally folklore concerning stories about an unusual or humorous event that many believe to be true, but largely are not. This story is about a young George Washington who confesses to chopping down a cherry tree because he could not tell a lie. This narrative is based off a work of fiction written in 1806 entitled Life of Washington. The author said the narrative was created in order to teach children the importance of honesty and trust. To this day, even though the story of George Washington has been proven untrue, it is a blind to shield an even darker deception. The motive behind the story began before 1776, before there was the United States of America. The European colonizers, or rebels, had to petition all existing world empires to recognize them as sovereign nations. No empire would grant these colonizers permission to call or govern themselves as a nation. That was until 10 years later, in 1786, the Empire of Morocco formally recognized the United States via a treaty of peace and friendship. It is only because of this treaty the U.S. is considered as an independent nation. What does this have to do with the cherry tree? The treaty represented a bilateral agreement analogous to contracts between two countries. The term Moor refers to people from Morocco. The Moors were the Muslim inhabitants of Al-Andalus during the Middle Ages, now called Spain and Portugal. Moor later came to be anyone who was Muslim or had dark skin. The Berber tribe's Amazigh origins are mixed with Spanish and Arab. The Moors and were brought to the Iberian Peninsula, creating the Islamic Andalusian civilization, and settled in the Maghreb or North Africa as refugees between the 11th and 17th centuries. The 11th century, they were kicked out of Spain. In the 17th century, Moorish enslavement and the loss of the cherry tree flag. The original name for Moors is Maori. The old name of Morocco, which is the anglicization of the Spanish name for the country. The Arab Berber invaders began marrying Spanish mixed race people. These descendants are Moors. Morocco is located on the African continent and it was the Christians that expelled the Moors from Spain. The Moors in North America are not indigenous, but meant a tract of land, undeveloped, wetland, located at moderate elevation, plateaus, etc. The Moorish flag. Note the ish. Ish means somewhat and used to modify something previously stated or as a vague reply. In a way, not exactly, to make the reference sound deliberately vague and approximate. This will be extremely relevant soon. So this Moorish flag looked like a big cherry tree amongst a sea of blue flags. It stood out and was captivating. Therefore, it was deemed the cherry tree. This is the significance. The indigenous who look like Moors signed treaties with the colonizers and Moroccans. The Moors who were expelled from Spain in the early 14th century. When the treaty was signed, all sides agreed not to enslave each other. But George Washington reneged by deciding to strip the Moorish citizens in the U.S. or America of their nationality. The natural inhabitants, the Aboriginal people who looked like Moroccans, hence Moorish, were immediately put into slavery. This is the metaphor of George Washington chopping down the cherry tree and which meant taking all the Moorish flags. In essence, chopping down the cherry tree. The fabrication of flag symbolized the separation from the matriarchy, the material or substance. Washington took their flags and locked them in a vault. His motivation for this was strictly for slavery. He even called them the strong men he needed in the fields. So the betrayal of the sons did against the matriarchy caused the bondage of fabrication, the Muslim of fabric synthetically made, wrapped the minds of the indigenous, wrapped around the minds of the indigenous. When the flag locked away, any and everyone of dark skin was thereby considered slaves. If the Moors couldn't prove their nationality, then they were enslaved. And back then, a flag was one of the ways to do that. The people of Morocco, the nation that helped the colonizers, were now enslaved by the United States. But also the indigenous, the Aboriginals, already living on the land, the Moorish, were considered slaves, and many removed from America and taken to other parts of the globe. Language can be very deceptive. Just look at how common speech is not legal speech. Right after signing, not months or years, but right away, George Washington betrayed the only people willing to help him. This doesn't seem like someone that represents honesty or loyalty. His story is all about the fictions created. Characters of founding fathers, faraway lands, and the desire for peace and friendship. This is a story as intriguing as all the great epics written around the world. The ego. The flags represent the fabrication, a man-made product, not real substance. With all the technology, without matter, mother, and all her states, these fabrications could not. Well, let me refrain. These fabrications are all as false as the fictional cherry tree myth. The only material substance is the truth, the spontaneous presence, now termed nature, the materia, prima materia. Queen Esther represents the return to truth. Queen Esther is Sirius, the goddess of love, Aphrodite, Venus, the royal bloodline within the physical instrument. Queen Esther has come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Being alive here in the present for such a time as now, as a materialized body for Queen Esther, Sirius, oneness is gathered together with wholeness, 2 by 2, consciousness and material, with soul and her celestial robe, Sirius. The city of Shushan is Newt, the celestial archway, the keystone, and symbolizes a picture being played out as reality. The ultimate city, where city means place of power, great wealth, glory, and victory. Haman in the Bible story of Esther represents the world, the ego, who opposes truth, purpose, and plan. Since disillusion came to believe its power and began its wicked plots, the original nation's forgetfulness has caused mourning, confusion, and perplexity. Queen Esther is a picture of the remnant, the remainder, the one who loves truth and walks in obedience to truth by upholding the covenant, represented by Newt, the great ark. Haman, the world, the ego, is a picture symbolizing the spiritual and secular, from governments, leaders, secrets, hostile, infiltrators, which mean false thinking and thinking that led one away from source. By turning away from Haman, the world, the ego, one is like Esther, appealing to the king, the inner authority to intercede. Queen Esther represents the re-establishment of the cherry tree. Nature, mater, mother. The fruit tree, the fruit of the womb. Buddhist teaches that Maya, the virgin mother of Buddha, was supported by a holy cherry tree. China has a legend of a goddess in whose garden the cherries of immortality ripen every 1,000 years. And because cherry wood is thought to keep evil energy away, cherry branches are placed over doors on New Year's Day. Also, carving cherry wood statues to stand guard in front of homes. Japanese mythology, the goddess of Mount Fuji, Konohana Sakuhami, which means the goddess who revives dead flowers. Isn't it beautiful that the cherry trees and blossoms represent peace and friendship and were gifts from Japan to this land as a reminder of overcoming an adversary? There's also a Christian story that Mary and Joseph, while walking through a cherry orchard, Mary asked Joseph to pick her some cherries. The story says Joseph answered her unkindly, saying, "Whoever brought thee with child should come fetch the cherries for you." The unborn child then communicated with the cherry trees, requesting them to lower their branches so that Mary could pick her own cherries, causing Joseph to be suitably repentant. This is considered prophecy. Each of these examples stand as a beautiful metaphor of the triumph of nature, mater, mother, over the mechanical, or all that is unnatural. The cherry tree that George Washington chopped down was the separation of the sacred trees in the Americas to now be used as objects. Consciousness was placed in a matrix, an artificial mind. The cherry berries can be made into a gray ink or dye. This red ink represents the prophecy of financial deficit and loss. The cherry is edible and medicinal, symbolizing immortality, warding off evil, and the speeding a healing recovery. But most of the tree, the inner bark is medicinal, which represents the incense, scent, commitment, deeply rooted. But most of the rest of the tree is very toxic to people and animals, the world, the ego, due to the toxicity of the cherry leaves. The cherry laurel is a crown of ornamental beauty and a powerful symbol of renewal. Nature always provides a security measure because understanding the cherry tree is power. Most of the information about cherry trees is given by Japan. Perfect symbolism. Japan is the land of the rising sun, and cherry blossoms have conceptualized the goddess in Japan. Japan can also be the word happen. Happen means take place, occur, come about, come into being. Also appear, arise, crop up, develop, materialize, take effect, or transpire.
What's the first thing you'd like to know me?
The message of Queen Esther is truth has come into being, has occurred as an event, and is the process and result. The cherry tree, Queen Esther, Sirius, and goddess of love, Sakura, the cherry blossom, the fruit, Kuan Yin, as the embodiment of beauty and resurrection. So much attention is given to the blossom, but representing the blossom is fleeting beauty. The fruit, a cherry, means the ingestion of the fruit, symbolizing inner and outer becoming one. So grateful for the ultimate cherry tree who removes the blindfold. Now Queen Esther, Sirius, can see Haman. Haman was the enemy, the adversary, the world, the ego. Isn't it odd that the very place the U.S. bomb gives the word Haman, but with an I attached? Hamani. Hamani wanted to kill all the jewels, Queen Esther's people. The U.S. who betrayed the jewels, the cherry trees, were gifted cherry trees by a land the U.S. had bombed, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and stand as a witness to rising from ashes. The phoenix. The Hiroshima flag is wine red with a white stylized character. A wooden Buddha stands in place in Manhattan, New York, symbolizing the power of the cherry tree from destruction.